Hey guys, Beta One Studios right here with another very interesting tutorial, and today we're going to be using After Effects and the Video Copilot plugin Element 3D to recreate some abstract art designs in the style of Justin Maller. In case you didn't know, Justin Maller is a digital artist who's done a lot of really cool artwork, including this amazing collection called Facets. So what I've done is I found a simple method inside Element 3D that you can use to make your own basic abstract art designs similar to those of Justin Maller's. So let's get right to it with a new composition right inside of After Effects. Depending on the resolution you want, you can set the comp size to just standard HD 1920 by 1080, or you could bump it up to something like 3840 by 2160 if you want a higher resolution. Now for the background, we can whip up a nice looking backdrop using a new solid with Ctrl Y, and let's apply a gradient ramp. Just FYI, I'll be using Video Copilot's FX console to add effects, which is the same as searching for effects in the column here and then dragging them in. As for our gradient, let's do a radial ramp with a subtle color difference just to keep things simple. Next, let's make another new solid, apply Element 3D to it, and open up the scene setup. You'll notice right off the bat here the element can create a number of basic primitive 3D objects natively. Go ahead and pick one. It doesn't really matter what you pick since we're going to be deforming it later on. Now the default white matte surface here looks kind of boring, so let's change up the material settings. If you don't feel like building your own materials from scratch and you just want to use one of the presets over here, you're going to want to pick one that's nice and reflective. Anything that has a glossy surface, like this chrome preset here, should work pretty nicely. It would look kind of bland if our artwork only had one color to it, so let's add a second primitive. Again, pick anything you want. I'm just going to go with this sphere here, and just so we can see what it looks like, I'm going to scale it up a bit. And let's set a second material on that. This black gloss preset looks pretty nice as well, so we're going to use that. Alright, now that we're all set up, let's hit OK and start adjusting our deform options under Group 1, Particle Look, and Deform. The first type of deformation we're going to apply is noise, so let's enable that, turn on 3D distortion, and crank up the intensity. And already you can kind of see where this is going. As we deform our combined 3D object, we're going to start to get that nice low poly crystalline design the further we go. We can also adjust the distortion percentage and the scale until we get a reasonably good amount of noise intensity. And if you're looking for more design variations, the evolution and random seed values down here provide virtually an infinite number of different morphing patterns right at your fingertips. Now, if you want your artwork to look like badly blended silly putty, then I guess you could just stop here, but if you're like me and that's not quite what you were going for, then there's still a lot more we can do to make our deform look extra spicy. Right now it just seems lacking in edginess, so let's fix that by adding some twist. So let's just enable that. As you add more and more twist on each axis, you'll start to get more intricate designs out of your deformation. But be careful not to overdo it, because if you add too much deform, then, it's just going to come out looking like a hot mess. So I'm just going to tone it back down a bit here. Now, if you'll recall, back in our scene setup, we created two 3D objects, a cube and a sphere. So since we have multiple objects, we can get some angular variations in our artwork by enabling multi-object and adjusting the random rotation. Of course, if I go back into Elements and add more 3D objects, we'd have more to work with in our multi-object rotation. This is something you can spend hours playing around with on your own, but for now, I'm just here to introduce you to the premise and let your imagination do the rest. So once you're happy with the way things are looking, all that's left is to export it. But first, make sure your comp's resolution is set to full so that you get the highest quality render possible. Now let's go up to Composition, Save Frame As, File. And we can just change the output here to any of the standard file formats like JPEG or PNG. Make sure you know where you're saving your file, name it whatever you want, and hit that render button. That's all there is to it. So what else can we do with this technique? Well, in the example I just demonstrated, we were just using primitive basic 3D objects. But you can actually experiment with deforming more complex 3D objects by importing them into Element. There are tons of great places online to find professional grade 3D objects, like TurboSquid and CG Trader, and a good amount of them are actually free as well. And if you want to go even further than that, you can actually play around with animating these deform values as well. Once you turn on the motion blur, lay down a few keyframes, and add some easing in the graph editor, you can get some really cool deform animations going. So feel free to explore. Have fun with it. You'll be amazed at where it can take you. Alright, so that's about all I've got. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this tutorial as much as I enjoyed making it, and I will catch you guys next time.